G'day, my name's Paul Chernicky from Rotec Engineering, and I just wanted to show you folks a little bit about what we're doing here at the moment. It's quite an interesting project. We were commissioned a job by one of our customers who'd bought a TBI office, and he's trying to fix his excessive head temperatures by running his mixtures richer and richer using our throttle body. And we sort of started to get a common theme here, getting lots of customers trying to cool down their Jabiru cylinder heads, particularly on the 6, although the 4 can have problems as well. Now, when I told once we'd recorded all these numbers, we then took the engine off the test stand and started to take the cylinder heads off. These are those 6 cylinder heads, and we were very surprised to see just how much gas was leaking out of the cylinder head. And if you focus in here, Ben, you can see this nasty patch of carbon here where the exhaust gas has been blasting out the side of the between the cylinder head and the cylinder itself where they meet. And it's interesting that 4 out of the 6 heads were all leaking in the same spot, and it's always around the exhaust valve. Okay, so that's obviously the hottest area of the head, and obviously there's some distortion going on, and the gas is pouring out. Now that's going to equate to poor compression, wasted horsepower obviously through cylinder pressure being wasted there, excessive temperature through that gas being forced out through between the cylinder and the head, and so not a very good scenario at all. And in fact, in some of these instances, Ben, if you can just sight across those 3 fins there, those 4 fins there, you'll see the noticeable distortion in there. This head is continuously, it has been distorted by continuously having to be retorqued. It's a well-known thing that the Jabirus have to have their heads retensioned every few hours, and I've never understood that. I don't understand why that's needed. Something must be moving. Well, you can clearly see that this head is basically distorting, and I think a lot of it is to do with the elevated temperatures, the material's reaching its yield point, and it's just starting to soften. That's also further indicated by the fact that there's some serious ridging where the cylinder meets the head. It's just diving in deeper and deeper and deeper, and that's where you guys are tightening up those heads every few hours. That's where that movement's going. You're just sinking the head further and further into the barrel, and you're actually bending the head. Like every one of these heads is bent. Now that's 4 out of 6 heads on the very first engine we tore down. Now I've since done some research, and I've got another cylinder head here. This is actually off a 4-cylinder engine. We've sandblasted it, and if you get that in the right light, Ben, you'll just see again how deep that ridge is there. Can you see that? Okay. Also notice the severe detonation around the exhaust valve again. Again, where the deep ridging is, it's on the hot area of the head, around the exhaust. Around the inlet side, much less detonation and no ridge. So the excessive temperature around the exhaust valve and the gas leaking is what's causing the material to yield, in my opinion. This head's been cleaned, but you can still see the remnants of where the carbon that was spewing out here has etched into the face of that head. And even though it's been sandblasted, I can still see that that's where the gas was spewing out. In fact, I marked it with a texter before I sandblasted it. So that's all very interesting stuff. Now, our solution was this. We took this cylinder head and we made it into this. Now our cylinder head, the Rotec one, is a will directly supersede the Jabiru head, but the big difference is it has no fins. These are just some styling around the side here, but predominantly it has no fins whatsoever. This is a fully water-cooled head. Water gets introduced to the head through the middle of the push rods here. We have an O-ring and a small manifold here, and that feeds water up through the bottom of the head. The water then circulates around a fairly generous water jacket and then comes out the top here and back to the radiator via a header tank. And we took great care to make sure that all the items in the Jabiru head would fit this head. We have one of the areas that we also noticed on the Jabiru head was that their valve guides are quite short, and they actually tend to wear excessively. Certainly these heads have got very sloppy valve guides, and the geometry of the Jabiru rocker rocker arrangement is, in my opinion, quite poor, and that it doesn't really push down straight on the valve. It tends to wipe quite heavily and pull the valve into the guide and wear it out. That's not helped by the fact that the guide is very short. Now what we've done is we've actually gone to a cast iron guide, close grain cast iron guide, and we've made the guide around about 15% longer without it fouling on any of the valve and everything. We also have included the detail of this little threaded plug here, which allows you access to that cylinder head bolt there. Not that we think these heads are going to need retorquing or servicing in any time in a hurry, but nonetheless that is there so they can get to that bolt. So all the details there. We've got the side tubes on the side here. This is the front, was intended to be the front head, so this one's plugged off, and then we have our tube here for our rocker gear oiler. And it should also be noted that water cools at 30 times the rate of air. 30 times. So if we can get some water through this engine, we believe we'll eliminate all the overheating issues or any heating over temperature issues that the Jabiru has. Now over to the engine itself. Here it is. The engine's complete. It's got our 6 liquid side of the engine. Around here would be good to look at, Ben. It's probably easiest to see. You can see we've got the original Jabiru exhaust system, the original Jabiru intake pipes, and they fitted perfect tubes, Jabiru. The difference is here, of course, we've got these little manifolds that we've made. We'll probably change them later, but for the moment, they'll suffice. And as you can see, we've got our water lines running up to these lines. That one's not connected yet. I'm just piecing this together at the moment. So there's our 3 water lines on this side. That's cold water coming in, and then there'll be hot water coming out, or hot or warm water, I guess, coming out the top of these large ports here. And then they'll go off to a header tank. From both sides will come together to a header tank, which will have a radiator cap on it, and then that will send the hot water down to the radiator for cooling. The pump that we're going to use to move the water around, and we've researched this pump and it's got an exceptional record. We're going to put the water pump in the radiator. But all in all, we're very pleased with how the package has come together. It's so far everything has gone to plan. You can imagine that without having that lost gases, which is commonplace on overheated heads, that's going to turn into usable horsepower. Also, the fact that the heads are not going to have to be torqued every few hours. Jabiru bottom end seems to be pretty sound. There's a crank and a cam in there. These days they don't seem to have any problems there. Most of their issues are in the top end, and Rotec believe that this is a big step forward. That's about it for today. I'll take a little bit more video when we get it on the test stand and get it running. So thanks for listening.